Given that The Walking Dead is coming out today, I decided to voice my opinion. After all, a zombie apocalypse would be bad for both politics and society. I like many zombie movies such as World War Z, Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, and Shaun of the Dead, as well as many video games like Dying Light, Dead Rising, and Dead Island. I used to like The Walking Dead, but I stopped watching it after halfway through the 5th season, mainly because the logic of the show was just idiotic. Now it's safe to say I don't like the show at all. That's why this video will state 10 reasons why a zombie apocalypse would just fail before it even begins. Number 10 is decomposition. Okay, let's start with the obvious reason why a zombie apocalypse would fail, and that is because a member of the living dead is still subject to the laws of nature. With decomposition in effect, we wouldn't even need to run from them as their motor functions would be gone. The typical cycle of human decomposition is divided into 5 stages: initial decay, putrefaction, black putrefaction, butyric fermentation, and dry decay. Also, you need to take into account that internal organs decay as well, and in most zombie fiction, the brain is what keeps them going. What does the season 1 finale say?
It restarts the brain?
No, just the brain stem. The frontal lobes, the neocortex, the human part, that doesn't come back.
Do you know when the brain stem decays? Black putrefaction. So at room temperature, the zombies would be completely dead after 30 days post-death. And that's at room temperature. Which brings me to number 9, exposure to the elements. Now there are a lot of factors which increase human decomposition. For example, humid and hot area is, the faster the rate of decomposition occurs. According to the Köppen climate classification system, Georgia incorporates a subtropical climate with hot, humid summers. And if you want to know how long that would take, well, Casper's law of decomposition states that a body decomposes twice as fast in the air than if it were underwater, and 8 times as fast than if it were buried underground. If you do the math, the life cycle of a zombie is 3.75 days. Brains of those zombies would turn into pea soup before Rick even wakes up from his coma. Alternatively, cold environments would render a zombie's chances of survival to 0. Healthy humans can to an extent withstand the cold because we regulate our own body temperature. A zombie cannot do that, well, because they're dead. It would be like throwing a rock outside and the zombie fan's worst nightmare would turn into a moaning popsicle in less than an hour. Number 8 is exposure to wildlife. Lots of animals would eat people if they had the chance. I mean, zombies are no exception. I'm from Canada, and if they went out into the wild, it wouldn't be long before hungry packs of wolves and mountain lions would eat them. Number 7 is infection. With no functioning antibodies, a corpse is an easy host for the biggest killer of life. They would also attract maggots and other insects which have been known to feed on dead cells. In short, these meat eaters would be food for these meat eaters. Number 6 is infestation. No, according to many experts, biting is an extremely inefficient way to spread a disease, and if someone attempted to bite you, you could pretty much stop them. Surprisingly, this is absent in a lot of zombie fiction.
Shut the fuck up! 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 Shut the fuck
Rabies have been known to exist since 2000 BC, and it is spread through bites. However, at no point did the majority of the animal population become contaminated. Number 5 is shelter. I mean, for 2 millennia, humans have been building large structures, many that have been able to withstand earthquakes. Apartment blocks, skyscrapers, bunkers, shopping malls are all the perfect defense against zombies. I live in Europe, where there are tons of forts and castles that were built to withstand any siege. You really think brain-dead zombies who can't even open a door will be any competition to it? Number 4, self-cannibalism. Now, this should have been further up, but if zombies really like to eat meat, why don't they eat each other in the first few hours post-death when their bodies are still fresh? Number 3, zombies could in fact be put to good use. Okay, you're probably wondering, like, what the fuck? But let me explain. The typical zombie we see in The Walking Dead was developed by George A. Romero in the 1968 movie Night of the Living Dead. The real legend of zombies goes back to voodoo practices in Haiti. In reality, the person wouldn't be dead, but in a death-like state. For a person to be brought into that situation, a voodoo priest called a bakor would put together a certain drink with several bizarre ingredients, including poison from a pufferfish. The bakor would either trick the person into drinking it or inject them with it, which results in the person falling into an unconscious state that resembled death. The theory is that the poison from a pufferfish isn't always fatal, and in small doses and when mixed with other materials can actually lead to some certain stance of paralysis. Also, the zombies were not hostile and weren't even used for combat. They were summoned in case the core needed an extra hand around the house. Furthermore, there is a cure for that state, the use of sodium chloride. So we could use zombies to do work that we don't enjoy or to keep us entertained. But anyway, back to the Romero zombie. Number 2 would be disease control. I mean, the world is more connected than ever before, and we haven't had a pandemic since the Spanish flu in 1920 because people have learned how to fight deadly diseases. First, any area would be quarantined, and then all people would be investigated till a cure or vaccine is developed. Humans have managed to eradicate smallpox and push rabies to extinction in developed countries. The only areas with their samples are the CDC in Atlanta and the health center in Moscow. Furthermore, any dead bodies with the disease are cremated, and if zombies were by any chance able to overrun these exclusion zones, they would be carpet bombed in order to assure that the virus is destroyed. And finally, military might. Alright, let's be real here. If zombies ever really did attack, they would be dead in a matter of days. Air power and long-range artillery have eradicated the need for large-scale formations we've seen in past battles because they can cause a lot of destruction over a very large area. This is what Warsaw looked like during the Second World War, and that was almost 80 years ago. Ground units would only be deployed to secure certain areas, and even then the zombies would be helpless. You think a zombie can chew through a 65-ton tank that can run over a horde like a tractor over a wheat field? And soldiers have armor that can protect them from high-caliber rounds. What do you think rotting teeth are to it? Don't even get me started on the unmanned ground vehicles that have nothing organic and carry even more weapons. So yeah, George A. Romero and Robert Kirkman, you guys really didn't think this through. The idea of what society would look like without people is pretty fascinating, but I want to remind you that zombies aren't exactly the good example. I mean, we have a better chance of apes taking over the world, and better yet, an alien invasion happening. I mean, that's my favorite kind of apocalyptic scenario. I mean, that would be pretty awesome.